Every now and then, there is an episode of Doctor Who that crashes and burns, invoking the ire of fans and regular viewers alike. From the moon being an egg to a sentient paving slab, these episodes are infamously despised and are only in top 10 lists about the worst episodes of all time. But do some of these episodes deserve to be held in such low regard? In this new anthology video essay series, I shall take a step back and give these episodes a second chance. I shall defend the despised. Sleep No More is the 9th episode of the 9th series of the revived era of Doctor Who. The episode takes place in the 38th century aboard a space station orbiting the planet Neptune. It follows the Doctor, Clara Oswald and a small team of soldiers as they attempt to locate survivors and solve the mystery of the abandoned space station. Upon release, Sleep No More was widely hated, receiving a measly 61% on Rotten Tomatoes, an audience appreciation index of just 78, and having the lowest viewing figures of the entire revived run of Doctor Who until Series 10's Oxygen. But what about this episode was so bad to warrant such a negative reception and an infamous reputation? It's a Mark Gatiss script. Mark Gatiss is a well-known figure in the Doctor Who community. He watched the show from a young age and his first television scripts were for the unofficial Doctor Who spin-off VHS series Probe by BBV. He has also written 4 Doctor Who novels alongside writing and acting in a total of 11 Big Finish audio plays. However, his most significant contributions to the franchise are the 9 episodes he has written for the revived era of the TV show. He has written for 4 Doctors and has written the most episodes of any non-showrunner. So why do his episodes have their own level of notoriety? They are all average. Each and every Gatiss episode is simply average New Who. Almost none of his episodes are standout classics, but they're consistent, safe and reliable. Unlike Chris Chibnall episodes, Gatiss episodes show that average can be good. They turn average into strengths. However, Sleep No More is the most ambitious and experimental Gatiss episode, both thematically and through its production. Gatiss was really trying to make a mark with this episode, and the themes of the episode are reflective of this fact. But what did it mean? Sleep No More is actually a piece of thematic brilliance. It is a heavily dystopian story, very similar to Black Mirror, which would reach international fame just 1 year later. Mark Gatiss intentionally wrote the episode as a commentary on the business world colonizing sleep. Businesses and corporations are constantly demanding more of a permanent state of working, so machines like the Morpheus pods would be seen as revolutionary and life-changing. Humanity is constantly seeking to make everything efficient and streamlined, so Morpheus is a hauntingly realistic invention because hundreds of millions of people would actually use them to save time and maximize their efficiency. Sleep No More would be widely praised if it was a Black Mirror episode because it offers a terrifying insight into a very likely future for humanity and explores how seemingly innocent ideas can threaten our very existence. Gatiss also uses the character of 474 for social commentary. 474 is a factory-made grunt created purely to act as a tank and a meat shield in battle due to their superhuman strength and durability. However, due to this, these grunts lack the same level of intelligence their human counterparts possess. It is implied that there is a significant social divide between humans and grunts based on the way the soldiers talk about 474 as if she is a lesser being for not being a real human like them.
Chopra, don't be angry. Don't be angry. It's so hard to breed them to speak properly.
This creates a similar moral dilemma to Blade Runner, I, Robot, Detroit Become Human and Doctor Who stories such as The Rebel Flesh. These properties all centre around the social divide and question of rights that occur with sentient humanoid creatures like androids. 474 proves that grunts are capable of intelligent thought and even the ability to love and feel affection. This prompts the moral debate as to whether grunts should be given civil rights and designated as their own race or species.
Cloned muscles, low intelligence, brute force.
Instant army.
That's disgusting.
Sleep No More was initially intended to be a two-part story, so there is a lot of background story condensed into the 45-minute episode. There is actually a lot of rich world building in the episode that provides fertile ground for a possible sequel down the line. Found footage bad. A common yet understandable criticism of Sleep No More is its usage of the cinematic subgenre known as found footage. Found footage is a film genre that portrays the events of the narrative as recordings from a first-person perspective of the protagonists. Originating from the controversial Cannibal Holocaust and popularised by the iconic Blair Witch Project, found footage has become a staple of horror media. However, in the years after the Blair Witch Project, there was a flood of found footage movies that saturated the genre. For every Blair Witch Project there was a Chernobyl Diaries, and for every Cloverfield there was a Blackwater Vampire. Arguably, the biggest period of found footage stagnation came about during the years 2013 to 2015. In these 3 years alone, there were around 55 found footage films released, compared to a rough estimate of 93 found footage movies released between 1980 and 2012. This hypersaturation of the found footage genre is likely a significant part of why fans hate Sleep No More, because it was released in 2015 in the midst of this found footage fatigue. However, despite coming during this period of genre stagnation, Sleep No More manages to put a unique spin on the concept of found footage. For starters, it subverts expectations, by giving an intelligent answer to the classic found footage plot hole of why don't they just switch the cameras off? In films such as Cloverfield, it becomes questionable that the protagonists continue to film instead of turning the camera off to focus on survival. This problem stems from the fact that when it comes to found footage, suspension of disbelief can only go so far. Fortunately for Sleep No More, Gatiss decided to directly address this issue by integrating it into the plot. The presence of the soldiers serves as a clever misdirection because the opening connotes that they have helmet cameras, but it is revealed that the Morpheus pods create a visual link to the user's eyes, which is addressed directly by the characters and plays a significant role in the story and the mystery. The structure of the episode also provides a significant and unique twist to the traditional narrative formula of found footage. Sleep No More is intentionally meta because it is supposed to be an in-universe film designed to get people to watch. In the DVD commentary of the episode, Gatiss explains that Rasmussen is creating something that he's telling people to watch, knowing they will. Rasmussen crafts an entire narrative with a beginning, middle and end, very much complying with the basic structure of Zvetan Todorov's narrative theory. Alongside this, he also portrays characters as a limited set of props, stock characters. The Doctor is the hero, the Sandmen are the villain, Clara and the soldiers are the helper, and Rasmussen is the dispatcher. This in-universe application of narrative theories makes perfect sense because they are traditional, tried and true ways to build a story that people will watch. Rasmussen needs people to watch the video so the Morpheus signal will spread. This creates an interesting concept of a mix between the ring and a mysterious disaster. I suppose the real-world equivalent would be if the black box of flight MH370 was found, but the recording turned out to be an elaborate way to spread a computer virus. In the Doctor Who universe, people in the solar system would see the mysterious crash of the La Verriere space station as a huge tragedy, and they would be desperate to find out what happened. By deliberately forming this narrative, Rasmussen ensures that any viewer watching will feel compelled to finish the tape. Therefore, Gatiss creates a perfect and logical justification for the adoption of the found footage genre, proving that it was not an attempt to cut corners or piggyback off of a trend. Instead, it is a genuinely experimental and unique approach to that style of film. The invasion of the eye boogers. Another significant complaint about Sleep No More is the premise and design of the monster. The Sandmen are huge hulking beasts which are made up of the sleep from the corner of the human eye. Whilst their gaping void of a mouth is somewhat unsettling, the majority of hatred centres around the aforementioned premise of the Sandmen. For decades, Doctor Who has taken pride in turning everyday things into terrifying threats. We have had statues, scarecrows, sofas, Christmas trees, bins, mould, Christmas trees, mannequins, TVs, shadows, cubes, bubble wrap, art, cacti, bubble wrap, birds, and even scarves. It has become a staple of the show to turn the ordinary into the sinister, so it is little surprise that writer Mark Gatiss wanted to take another shot at this approach after the mixed reception to his Series 2 endeavour, The Idiot's Lantern. For Sleep No More, Gatiss decided to pose the question, what if there is a reason we wipe sleep out of our eye? This is a very interesting idea that follows in the footsteps of Moffat's Vashta Nerada, which are based upon the irrational fear of the dark. While the Sandmen don't quite have the same sinister terror of the Vashta Nerada, they are still creepy in their own regard. It is somewhat implied that the Sandmen aren't just the sleep from the corner of the eye. It is suggested that they are essentially a zombified version of the space station's crew. This would mean that the Morpheus signal causes a slow takeover of the host, corrupting them cell by cell until the victim is completely consumed and becomes a Sandman. This process is alluded to when Rasmussen himself transforms into a Sandman at the end of the episode. This adds a whole new layer to the Sandmen because it connotes that they are not simply the sleep dust, they are humans who have been consumed by the Morpheus signal, which has completely hijacked their natural processes. At the end of the day, the design of the Sandmen is and always will be subjective and bound to personal preference. I believe that they are meant to be rather gross to reflect the fact that we should not let sleep build up in our eyes because it is naturally gross. Whilst these are the more widespread significant criticisms of the episode, there are also a number of smaller criticisms. It's time for a lightning round. The song is annoying. The 1954 Chordettes song Mr. Sandman plays a prominent part in the episode. Some people say that the song is annoying, but that is kind of the point. It is an earworm, much like how the Morpheus signal is a virus that slowly worms its way into your mind and body. Additionally, a lot of people complain about the song being there because it is set so far in the future. This can be easily explained by connoting that the inventor of the Morpheus pods was simply a future hipster who loved the 50s. I mean, just look at the modern resurgence of vinyl and cassettes. It just makes sense. The Doctor loses. A lot of people take issue with the ending of the episode. During the climax, the Doctor, Clara and Nagata escape without knowing Rasmussen's true plan. People don't like that the Doctor doesn't win, but why would he? He doesn't know what Rasmussen was actually doing, so he cannot stop Rasmussen. Moffat has explained that the Doctor does not have to win, but Peter Capaldi takes it a step further by suggesting that you simply don't see him win. This is hugely important because it implies that the Doctor did end up winning, but it just happens off screen due to the episode being found footage. Additionally, it was Rasmussen who put all the footage together before dying, so he wouldn't know that the Doctor would foil his plan in the future. Even if he did know, he wouldn't want to show this because it would be counterintuitive. Why would you show your enemy defeating you? It's too dark and gloomy. Some people claim the lighting is too dark and makes it hard to see. However, this was an intentional choice because we are seeing an abandoned space station through the literal eyes of the characters, so of course it will be dark. The darkness also creates a more desolate and claustrophobic feel whilst keeping the Sandmen lurking in the shadows. I personally feel like it adds a lot to the episode. Found footage is just lazy. It is almost undeniable that found footage films are often an easy way to capitalise on a tiny budget. For example, the Blair Witch Project was made for a mere $60,000. It makes sense. I mean, why pay loads of money to hire experienced actors, pay for location rights or sets, and assemble a full crew when you can just send some unknown cheap actors into the woods with camcorders? This did indeed give rise to a trend of using found footage for the sole purpose of cutting corners. However, some productions like District 9 use found footage to enhance the story instead of just reducing cost. Sleep No More is an example of this, because the actors and camera operators had to completely change their styles and adapt their performances for an entirely different and unfamiliar style of production. The verdict. Is Sleep No More a masterpiece? No, of course not. But is it really as frustratingly mind-numbingly bad as so many people claim? Not at all. Doctor Who is and always will be about experimentation. It is part of the show's DNA, which is why it is constantly changing and evolving, and that is why it has lasted so long. Sleep No More is another step in a long line of experimental episodes. It challenges our perception of the show and its main character, whilst also making stark and sobering commentaries about humanity's present and future. It asks a lot of questions about our very nature. Found footage had not really been done on TV, at least not to this extent, but Doctor Who is elastic. It can afford to just have a random found footage episode in the middle of a series. To put it bluntly, Sleep No More just suffered from really bad timing. Not only did it come out during found footage fatigue, it is also sandwiched between two acclaimed episodes in what is arguably the best series of New Who. However, this was years ago, so I implore you to rewatch it with an open mind and give it a second chance. It is experimental Doctor Who at its best, and I am not ashamed to say that it is a hidden, underrated gem.